We made it here to February 2017, and there's still no rules. Earlier this week, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, which means there is going to be 6 more weeks of winter.
Yeah, it may be cold outside, but we're going to stay warm inside the combo with women's, men's basketball coverage, and some hockey coming up next on Ohio Sports Zone.
Welcome in Ohio Sports Zone. I'm Bobby Levine. Alongside me is Ethan Graham. As always, again, 2017, no rules or whatever. Let's dive into the convo with the basketball team, who is struggling still without Antonio Campbell. Right now, the Bobcats are 13-7 overall with a 5-4 record, coming off a loss at Western Michigan. Final score was 90-85. Ethan, what happened?
Yeah, it was a tough week for the Bobcats. You know, they got the big win on Bowling Green. 18 threes in that game, but they weren't able to carry any of the really positives from that performance. They still shot well, 53%, 2 straight games. That's obviously a positive you can take out of the game, but a 90-85 loss, dropping them to 13-7, 5-4 in the Mid-American Conference, which now puts them at 5th overall. They would be out of those teams that get a bye, the first round of the MAC tournament. Ohio seemed in control the whole game. They really did struggle down the stretch, though, and that continues to be an issue. The depth continues to be an issue for Ohio. Really, they only go 8 deep right now. It just gets down to it late in games. They don't have the legs. They're tired. They don't have the height, and that continues to be a problem for them. Jason Carter, another impressive game. It seems like we're talking about him putting up a career high every single week, 21-5. Jaron, 18-6, just doing his thing. Kaminsky dropped 16, had 4 threes. That's good to see him shooting well again. He struggled, at times this season. Out-rebounded 37-29, which is just probably going to be the normal for the remainder of the season if we're being realistic, with a 6'7" guy down low as your starter. Thomas Wilder had a huge game, 20 points in the second half, scored 10 of the final 19 for Western Michigan. And like I said, Ohio just flat couldn't get stops down the stretch. And they had Jason Carter open again for the 3 to, win this game, put it into overtime, and he missed it. It is what it is. You can only hope for open shots down the stretch. That's what they got, and sometimes you just miss shots, Bobby.
Absolutely. Another stat there on Jason Carter. He was 1 for 7 from behind the three-point arc. Definitely hurt the Bobcats later on in the game. Also, Tucker Heyman had 20 points to go along with Thomas Wilder's 29. Huge performance from them as a whole. Let's talk about the Bobcats as a team the last couple of games. They've shot a great field percentage. They've had 53% from the field. They even blew out Bowling Green. They had 18 three-pointers in that game. What's going on other than that? I mean, they're shooting the ball great. What else is going wrong?
Yeah, now that with the absence of Antonio Campbell, Jaron Simmons is really having to step up. We're seeing his distribution, his passing really become the focal point of the Ohio Bobcats offense rather than just feed Tony. Feed Tony when he's open anywhere from the perimeter. He can make those shots. But now it's Jaron's seemingly the man, the point guard, the guy running the show. He gets all those opportunities, and now that you take away a guy like Antonio, who's 6'10", they only have one guy who really can't shoot from out there, Doug Taylor. They have 7 guys who are at least decent from 3. So, they've been getting their open perimeter shots. They've been taking advantage of them when they can. 85 points against Western Michigan, 96 against Bowling Green. They're really shooting the lights out, but defensively, it's just not there. So it's good. You can take some positives out of it, but defense, at the end of the day, defense wins games and championships.
Now, before we talk about this weekend's huge matchup against Akron at home for Sibs weekend, what are the deficiencies of this team other than the defense?
Yeah, well, I think the theme that's been, really worrying these last couple of weeks is the inability to finish. Ohio, like I said, in Western Michigan, in control of the game. Toledo in control of the game. And they blew those leads coming down the stretch. Whether it be depth, whether it just be conditioning, they're going to have to find a way to battle late in these games and maybe pull a few out, or it's going to be a very long finish to this season. So Ohio, it's going to be late in games. It's going to be crunch time. It's going to be making those shots when they're open. You just got to find a way.
And now looking at this huge matchup this weekend against arch rivals Akron, the past couple years has been a dog battle between them and the Bobcats to finish who's the best team in the MAC. What are the keys to this game, and do you think the Bobcats have any chance of winning this game and surprising the whole MAC?
Well, they're going to have to continue to shoot the lights out. Like I said, 53%. They're putting up enough points to win. They have enough offense to beat any team in the MAC, even with 8 deep. That says a lot about the offensive ability of this team. But they're going to have to continue to shoot the lights out, really get those looks from 3, really take advantage of them. They're going to have to stop Kawan Cheatham. He had a big game last time, 17 and 13 against Ohio. Isaiah Johnson, 7'1", 290 down low, another huge issue for the Bobcats, only having 6'7", 6'8", 6'7", and 6'8" forwards down low. So really it comes down to, stopping Kawan Cheatham, stopping Isaiah Johnson, really not letting them play their game, not letting them get that post game going, making them take contested jump shots. And Ohio's also going to have to knock down a whole bunch of threes if we even have a chance in that game, Bobby.
Before we go to a quick commercial break, what is your final prediction, final score-wise?
I think Ohio can hang around. This team has a lot of fight. It's never been an effort thing this year. It never has. I can't stress that enough. But at the end of the day, I don't think Ohio's going to have the bigs to pull it out. I like Akron 91-75, closer than the experts think.
If we can shoot the way we did against Bowling Green and hit 18 threes, it could be a very, very close game going down the stretch. Hot shooting could lead you on to an upset.
Hey, you never know.
Like we saw Villanova back in the 80s. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have Shane Dazen here with Ohio Hockey on Ohio Sports Zone.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back on Ohio Sports Zone. Ethan Graham along with Shane Dazen once again, the voice of Ohio hockey, lover of rabbits. Shane, we got a huge series coming up this weekend against Pitt. Pitt's a good team. Ohio's number 3. They certainly have that ranking advantage on Pitt. What are some general things we can watch out for in this series against Pitt this weekend?
Oh, yeah, Ohio coming into the weekend 21-4-1, number 3 in the ACHA. So that there's good things going here at Burt Arena as we head into this matchup, looking to move up in those standings and maybe jump that second or first spot in the ACHA. But in Pitt, you're also getting a very skilled hockey team coming in 18-4-3 on the year. A lot of talent up front for them. It's led by solid goaltending on the back end, too. So definitely it's going to be a difficult matchup in terms of positioning and how Ohio is going to be able to defend that potent offense for Pitt. But a couple things to look forward to this weekend. A couple names to look forward to not being in the lineup are guys like Matt Hartman, Joey Breslin, Matt Rudin, and Mike Lafreniere, who are all away with Coach Hogan there in Kazakhstan playing in the World University game. So Ohio's going to have to plug in a couple pieces up top, especially on those first 2 lines, to really try to cement this forward group heading into this weekend and try to make some positive things happen against Pitt.
Yeah, you talk about Joey Breslin and Matt Rudin, both have 12 goals, are tied for the Ohio lead in goals. Time off a factor, last week no game, the charity game. Last time these guys played was 2 weeks ago. Is that a factor, especially with no coach, Sean Hogan, still overseas in Kazakhstan? Is that going to be a factor heading into this game? How important is the start for the Bobcats here in both games this weekend?
Well, I don't really know if it's going to be a detriment to the Bobcats as much as it might be actually a benefit to them, getting a weekend off from real competition and having a lively, fun-hearted, spirited event there in the charity game. It was nice for the boys to kind of get some bonding together there, meet with some other guys, take a breather. it was almost like a sort of a pause in the middle of the tough schedule that's coming up here for the Bobcats. And I think that they don't really need to skate, every single weekend like they have been when they're practicing 5 days a week, when, they're getting tough competition week in and week out. Their legs are already under them. I think that the breather here toward the end of the stretch run heading into the playoffs is actually a positive thing for the Bobcats.
Yeah, and we talk about goaltending. We've talked about it all year. Aaron Alcamo, Jimmy Thomas, Ryan Helchian has been a strong point for the Bobcats. They've all played out of their minds, absolutely standing on their heads at time. We're getting close to the postseason now. We only have this home series and one more left. If you're Coach Hogan, how are you going to determine which guy you roll with in the playoffs? Are you going to do more of what you've done all year? Are you just going to roll with the hot hand? Are you going to have, some maybe scheduled starts even, really see, who you like the best and stick to one guy? How do you do that?
Well, in a tough weekend series against Pitt here coming up, it should be interesting to see who gets the net for the Bobcats. As we mentioned before, Pitt is 18-4-3, so they're nobody to sniff off in terms of compete level and things like that. So this weekend's matchup in the goaltending that we'll see this weekend really should go a long way in determining who might get some starts here in the stretch run and toward the playoffs. I think next week against Illinois, and then in a couple weeks too against Iowa State, we're going to have some really tough matchups. So goaltending is going to be at a premium in those games, and I think whoever comes out on top there will have a head up going into the playoffs. But for the Bobcats, really, like as we mentioned last week, a good problem to have. Jimmy Thomas, 12-2 this year, playing his lights out goaltender as we've seen here in a while. But Aaron Alcamo, the incumbent starter from last season, had some time stripped from him from Thomas in his run this year that we've seen from him. But he's got an opportunity the last couple weeks to get back into the lineup, make some positive contributions on the stat sheet and in the win column for the Bobcats too. So it's also going to be something in Coach Hogan's back pocket, having Alcamo and that solid, veteran presence in the lineup at any given time if he needs it.
Yeah, and we talk about Pitt a little bit. Let's get into some specifics. A lot of our viewers don't know, well, none of them know because we haven't told them this, that you actually are from Pittsburgh and you played high school hockey at, one of the highest levels, and you've actually played with a few of these guys. Is there any Pitt players specifically that we should, keep our eye on this weekend?
Yeah, a couple guys for Pitt to look out for. Daniel Mers, a product of Norwin, which is a high school pretty close to my area. Really talented hockey player, leads the team with 37 points in 24 games heading into this weekend's competition. This is a guy that had 110 points in 38 games in high school hockey competition too. So you can see that he's an elite, point producer for Pitt and the rest of the ACHA as well. But a couple other guys for Pitt to look out for: Brett Oedeker, leading the team, or second in the team, in points with 29. And then number 20, J.D. Audie, another guy that I'm very familiar with, having played against him in high school. He was on my rival team, Cannon Mac. So two guys that I'm very familiar with, and I know they have a lot of talent that I think will cause problems for Ohio this week in terms of shots. And funny thing to note, for Pitt, Brett Oedeker and J.D. Audie are from a school called Cannon Mac, and their team scout, I guess, or their team mascot, is called the Big Mac. So if you're Pitt, you can have your Big Mac and eat it too.
Yeah, well, there is certainly a lot of options here in Athens in terms of food. But we're going to go to commercial right now. Shane Dazen, thank you for coming. We'll see you next week, bud.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back on Ohio Sports Zone. Ethan Graham, Bobby Levine, per the usual. Bobby, a 79-62 win for the Cats over Arch enemy, Miami. Take us through that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Great win for the Bobcats. I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride going through the non-conference, even in the conference play so far. They're 7-3. They're about the third position right now, about midway through the MAC play. Big win, though. Hannah Bosinger, 17 points, season high for her. She set her season high the week before, getting 15 points and now putting up 17. Great job from her. Kira Lampkin, 17 points, 10 rebounds. That's her fifth double-double this year. An incredible stat for her. We'll talk a little bit later this segment about her accomplishment at Ohio University. And with without Jasmine Witherspoon down low, they out-rebounded Miami 45-31. Again, we'll talk about this later. Very confusing on how this happens, but great win from them. And moving forward, it looked promising.
Yeah, certainly a great thing to take away, out-rebounding them plus 14. Bobcats slipped up a little bit later in the week, though, a 64-59 heartbreaker to Central Michigan. Talk about that game a little bit, Bobby.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Bobcats, like I said, the roller coaster effect took place. Without Jasmine Witherspoon, the lineup was short. Only 7 players got in this game. A couple girls only played less than 5 minutes. Very confusing on what Bob Bolden wants to achieve with this team right now. Big question marks surrounding that. Kira Lampkins, 24 points. She just passed third place now on the all-time all-time record books for points scored. She's 183 points behind Kiana Black, who graduated last year. Some great names up there
absolutely.
For the Bobcats. Again, we'll talk a little bit later about that. And then Hannah Bosinger, she had 10 points and 10 rebounds. One stat to look at, Kelly Carlis, she had a career-high 12 rebounds. Unfortunately, on the offensive side, she went 1 for 8 from the shooting, and that hurt the Bobcats later on. The big stat to look out for during that game where they just lost at Central Michigan, they got outscored in the third quarter 19-11 when they're up by 5 at halftime, and they got outscored by 2 in the fourth quarter, and that was the ultimate ending of their winning streak.
Now, we talk about rebounding seemingly every week with this Ohio Bobcats women's basketball team, but Jasmine Witherspoon is due back soon. Are you at all worried that she's going to disrupt the groove Ohio's gotten into rebounding?
It's very unique to see your tallest player on the team for the last couple of years go out and your rebounding numbers go up. I think everyone down low is that is getting some PT, is trying to get their places down low, trying to go after the ball, which is great to see. Unfortunately, you're missing your number 1 or number 2 scorer on the team. She's been a presence from behind the arc as well, kind of like the Ohio Bobcats men's team. They don't have a center that can actually play down low. They're shooting from all over the place, like we talked about with Carter. But with Jasmine, she also is a block stopper in the middle. And without her, as you see the last game, they lost a lot of points in the paint. So with her, you definitely want to have her back regardless. But I'd like to see if Bob Bolden in his defense and with Coach Jackson keeps up the rebounding pace, because obviously they have something going right now.
Yeah, we talked about Kira Lampkins accomplishing third all time in scoring, an outstanding individual accomplishment. Her and Kiana Black, what do these two mean to Ohio University women's basketball? There really wasn't much of a program before we got here. How do you even begin to break down what these two girls mean to Ohio basketball?
It's an emotional topic for Bob and for just all the Ohio women basketball advocates around campus. They mean everything to this team right now. Before I got to campus 5 years ago, the team was pathetic. They won 6 games my freshman year, and then they got Bob Bolden, and he's had this class all 4 years. Kiana Black was his main girl coming in. That it was already here. She wasn't as good as what would she become. Bob Bolden molded her into what she is. As you see, a top 2 scorer of Ohio history. Kira Lampkins, should break that in the upcoming game. She's only 183 points, so she averages around 12 points per game over 14 games, which she's done the entire year. She'll pass her. These girls deserve to have their jerseys retired in the combo,
Absolutely.
being next to each other. I mean, that's the problem with Ohio women's basketball. There's pretty much no history.
No, they built it up from the ground.
Other than the 85 season, the 94 season, those are the only 2 postseason appearances you had. And with these 2 girls, that not only did they get to the tournament a couple years ago, but then they got to the NIT Sweet 16 last year. I know it was a very letdown season, but just to get that on your resume is incredible from what it was when you go, say, 6-25. So
yeah, especially how far they've come in 4 years. The NIT is a huge deal in college basketball. Yeah. Staying on the topic of Kira, can she climb up and pass Caroline Mass for first all-time in scoring?
I wish she could. If she had one more year, absolutely. Caroline Mass was the anchor of the team back in the day. She ended up with, can you remember?
I remember, just like yesterday, buddy.
She ended her career with 2,449 points. If the Bobcats played 15 more games, which is very highly unlikely, Kira Lampkins would have to average over 50 points per game, and unfortunately that will just not happen. They're averaging just over 60, 70 points per game, and she would have to get almost 80, 90% of their points. She can definitely pass Kiana Black and move up to the second. But again, having those two girls on the record book and having their pictures in color, which is great because the pictures of girls back in the day are in black and white.
I did see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So good luck to Kira Lampkins moving forward.
Two huge MAC West contests coming up for Ohio this week. Toledo at home, and they'll go at Muncie to Ball State. Bobby, can they go 2-0 this week?
It's going to be very, very difficult, but we're going to see how good these girls are. Hopefully Jasmine Witherspoon gets healthy, comes back, and if she does, we'll see if the Bobcats can win these two big games. These are huge games for moving forward to March. We're right now in February. We're about a month away from MAC tournament play. The top 4 teams in the MAC get a bye, and you definitely want to have that. Move forward to Cleveland and push from there. Everything kind of sets themselves apart, but you don't want to be in that middle pack, and you got to play each other and get up their way out. If you can get a 2 seed, you can play the lower seeds in the MAC, and the lower seeds are definitely a lot worse in the middle of the pack. So good luck to the Bobcats moving forward.
Yeah, certainly a great time for women's basketball, really getting into crunch time. Coming up next, get out your checkbooks, kids. We're playing buy or sell on Ohio Sports Zone.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
We hope you have your pens and paper ready because we are getting ready to start buy or sell here with Bobby Levine and Ethan Graham. We'll get this started here with a couple series of questions here, get their opinions on a couple things, and we'll move forward here. So, first question here, Ethan. Bobby, OU women's basketball, do they have enough to earn a top 4 bid in the MAC play?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, you'll let me go first. How nice of you.
Thank you.
I like what Ohio has been able to do these last couple of weeks. They're still without Jasmine Witherspoon. They're going to get her back. They're going to continue to rebound at an even better rate, and they're going to be one of the top 4 seeds, if not the top seed in the MAC. Bobby, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to buy them getting a top 4 seed. Again, the next 2 games are huge against teams above 500. You have a 5-4 team this weekend, and you're going to play Ball State, who's 8-2 in the MAC. You win these 2 games, you're going to start separating yourself from the pack and get up there and hopefully get a top seed in the MAC and have a nice, easy run all the way to Cleveland.
All right, boys. Second question here. Jerron Simmons says that Jason Carter has the talent to be a future MAC Player of the Year. Do you guys buy or sell Jason Carter becoming a future MAC player?
I'll take this one first,
Yeah.
Ethan. I'm going to disagree with this. I'm going to sell this. The only thing I have to say of this is it's very hard to stay healthy the whole year. We saw this year, with Antonio Campbell, projected to be, again, the MAC Player of the Year. Breaks his foot, unfortunately. I don't know if Carter can do it, and he's losing all of his pieces later this year once the season ends. He's losing Simmons. He's losing Campbell. We'll see what happens. Kaminsky's gone. I'm going to sell this one.
Yeah, well, he's not losing all of his pieces. Jordan Dardis is still going to be there. He's going to turn out to be a really great player. I'd actually like to buy Jason Carter as a future MAC Player of the Year, and here's why. If they can get him playing at his natural position, if they can get him at the 3, if they can get him at the power forward, which is more realistic in the MAC, he's able to be a really dynamic player. He can rebound at not a huge height. He's only 6'7", and he can score. This is a freshman we're talking about, coming in dropping 21, breaking his career high every single week. So I like Jason Carter. If he continues to do the things he's doing right now to be a future MAC Player of the Year. Of course, there is things like injuries. Like Bobby said, we do have to take into consideration. There's these freak things. But, all injuries aside, if everything goes to plan, and, that can obviously change, I like Jason Carter as a future MAC Player of the Year. You heard it here first.
All right, you heard it here first. Up next, does Ohio hockey get the sweep this weekend against Pitt?
Bobby, I'll let you.
You want me to take this one first?
How about you go first?
All right, I'll thank you. I appreciate that. I'm actually
nice guy.
I'm gonna buy this one. I've been buying the hockey team as of late. Not only the Blue Jackets playing well, but the Ohio Hockey are playing great. I see both Ohio teams beating Pittsburgh this week. Not only the Jackets beating the Penguins.
I do too.
I also see the Bobcats beating the Panthers. So good luck to the Bobcats on the ice.
Yeah, I also see it the same way. I'm going to buy Ohio University hockey this weekend against Pitt. They certainly have a huge goaltending challenge in the other net. Matt Snader, 174 goals against average. They're without 2 of their top goal scorers. But Ohio hockey has been able to pull it out. They've been able to play, a really team game, systemic brand of hockey that's just shoot, shoot, shoot. They're going to get their 50-plus shots, at least one of those games for sure. And they're going to wear Pitt down like they do other teams. They're going to come out, maybe close games, but I think they're going to come out with a sweep this weekend, 2-0 for the Cats.
And a couple votes for confidence here for your analysts on Ohio Sports Zone. And our next question, Bob Bolden for the women's basketball team. Does he leave after this season?
You want to go with this one?
I would love to go with this one. Yeah, I think Bob Bolden is really falling in love with Athens like we all do when we come to school here. He came here, built the basketball program up from nothing. I really just find it hard for him to walk out, especially, when he hasn't got that NCAA tournament win. They've been there, but he hasn't got that big win. They haven't gone on that huge surprise Sweet 16 run. And I think he really wants that for these girls, and I think he'll stay, maybe at least one more year, maybe 2.
It's a very, very tough subject, especially for women's basketball and college basketball as a whole. Being in the MAC, it's pretty much a stepping stone job to get a better job to get yourself, as you see, clear to everyone else.
It's realistic.
It's a realistic, absolutely. So right now, he's been here for 4 years. He's took his entire class with Keir Lampkins in that 2013, graduating high school, all the way through. If they finish the top of the MAC and somehow get a berth in the March Madness tournament, I do believe this will be his last year at Ohio. Coaches and teams all over the nation will be calling him from Division I Power 5 conferences, and they'll be wanting Bob Bolden to be their head coach for the women's team. If he does stay, that'd be a great thing for the Bobcats here in Athens. I think they would try to extend his contract. He's signed through 2020. I think having him even longer would be a great stepping stone for this program to stay at the pedestal it has been for the last couple of years.
And our final question here, guys. National Signing Day this week. Do you buy or sell Ohio's recruiting class?
Go ahead.
I'll take this one. Yeah, 2 guys you're going to want to look out for this year. 2 new quarterbacks, Drew Kesai and Nathan Rorick. Those are 2, really big names they got. There's obviously a problem at quarterback with Quentin Maxwell being the only one there. Joey Duckworth also there, but he might not be ready to take the field yet. I will buy the Ohio University recruiting class. They got some, new defensive lineman replacements, some new athletes. It'll be interesting to see what position those guys play. But I'm going to buy. I'm going to do you one further. One of those 2 quarterbacks, Kesai or Rorick, will be on the field this year, starting a game for Ohio.
Wow. I mean, that's huge news for the Bobcats. I love how we're talking about football right before the Super Bowl weekend. I'm always buying the Bobcats. Obviously, they're not the same team as the team right up at 33 in Columbus, getting the second best recruiting class in Ohio State. But again, a great recruiting class for the Bobcats. Losing a lot of great guys on defense. The defensive line, especially we're losing a guy that's been a rock hole with Blair Brown as the linebacker. Moving forward to the draft, could see a possible second-round pick in one of our defensive players. Won't want to jinx it right now, but you never know. And then also moving forward, the quarterback play with Maxwell. It's going to be huge to see if his offensive line can protect him because he did get banged up a little bit last year and made some poor decisions.
Yeah, much to come here for Ohio football next year.
Before we go, though, I want to say if you guys have not checked out the podcast, J&B Weekly Wrap-Up, you can hear the SoundCloud. If you hear it is right here. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is also going to be right here, and check it out. We got over 1,000 views and possibly a huge thing coming up here in the next couple of weeks with Ohio Sports Zone teaming up with J&B Weekly Wrap-Up. That's all I got to say.
It's been a great show, boys.
Else?
Yeah, it's been a great show, boys. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Ohio Sports Zone.